Welcome to Illo Talk. I am Cory Kerr, and this is episode 125. I feel like we've hit some kind of milestone or something. And I have once again not prepared for a milestone. So you get a normal episode. Today we're going to talk about, is art a zero-sum game? And I will tell a story about a time that I choked on a hot dog and almost died. Before I get started on those two things, what you're seeing on the screen right now is me drawing, or at least sketching, kind of a compositional layout of a page for the book that I'm talking about. And so that's going pretty well. I've got all the pages mapped out. I've got a significant portion of the text written. I have all of it kind of plotted, and it's good. It's going well. So anyway, the first part, what you're seeing is this is how I use reference, and so you will see that I am looking at a lot of different things. I draw it over and over and over again to get a feel for like how, in this case, how a sparrow like functions, how it's built, how it moves. And so for the significant portion of this video, that's what you're seeing is me working out in my mind like how a sparrow works. And I don't actually think any of those end up in the final drawing. They don't. Mainly because I was just trying to get the mechanics of that down. So that's that. So yeah. Now, let's talk about a zero-sum game. So a zero-sum game is another economic principle. And what it's talking about is that if you take a finite number of things, right? A number of widgets or whatever that doesn't change. It's a fixed number, not a variable. And you have a group of people. If I take one of those things, there's one less for everybody else, right? And so if there are 10 of those things and I take 10, no one gets any. That's zero sum, meaning that if you add everything up, you can account to a finite fixed position, right? And to illustrate that point, I want to tell you a story. This is a slightly embarrassing story, but I was a kid, so it's cool, right? It's okay if I tell embarrassing kid stories. So anyway, growing up, had a lot of siblings, and we would race each other when we ate. We were not like in poverty, but we were on a fixed budget. You know, it was my dad was a school teacher, single income family, in California where the cost of living is pretty high. And my parents are amazing budgeters. And so they were able to do that. But it's not like we were rolling in it. And my mom hates cooking, hates it, right? She did it faithfully, but she's not a big fan. And so she had like half a dozen recipes that she would just kind of rotate through. Not a lot of experimentation. One of them was pigs in a blanket. And pigs in a blanket were like one of my favorite things. They're super simple. Take a hot dog. You take Rhodes frozen dough, right? Thawed out. You wrap the dough around the hot dog. And if we were super lucky, she'd cut like a strip of cheese and she'd put like cheese and then you bake them in the oven. It's like the simplest thing ever. And then we just covered our plates in ketchup. And we ate these pigs in a blanket. And, but no matter how many she made, there was always a fixed number of pigs in a blanket. There's always a fixed number of hot dogs, right? And my brother and I are 2 years apart. And we would just eat as fast as we possibly could because if you didn't eat quickly, you wouldn't get enough food, right? Because say there's 10 or 15 or whatever pigs in a blanket, right? And so if I take my time, then I might get 2 or 3. And this is the embarrassing part. We were growing teenagers. I do want to point that out. So, and I was a 3-sport athlete at the time, so huge caloric burn. But we ate so much, it was ridiculous. And I remember one night, we were sitting there, and it was pigs in the blanket night, and I was just wolfing them down, you know. You dip it in the ketchup, you just take the whole thing down, and then we grab another one, and it was like spearfishing with our forks, and we were just, and it was like kind of, we never actually said anything about this competition. It was never like spoken out loud that we were actually competing with each other, but it was just kind of, it was known, you know, that there's one, there was a competition, two, this is a zero-sum game, right? At some point in time, we're going to run out of food, and that's it. You don't get more food. So if you eat quicker, you get it, you know. And I was chowing these down, and then I remember I just couldn't breathe anymore, and I had gotten something lodged in my throat. Like I had eaten it so quickly that it got lodged in my throat, and I started to freak out because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't say anything. I wasn't choking, because when you're choking, you're like, you know, there was nothing. I was just like, right? And anyway, I was able to force enough air out that I coughed up what it was, and it was, this is gross, it was a 3-inch unchewed portion of hot dog. Like my teeth had not touched it. I had eaten so quickly that I had swallowed 3 inches of hot dog that just got lodged right there, and I couldn't breathe for a couple seconds. And I went, and it came out, and it just fell on my plate, totally whole, totally unchewed. And everybody in my family looked at my plate, and we were all like, okay, that was really gross. My sister was done. She's like, I'm not eating anymore. That's disgusting. I can't do it. And anyway, so then I finished. And after that, I didn't have to, for that meal, I didn't have to like speed. I had grossed everyone out so much that they were all done and I could take my time. That's a zero-sum game. Zero-sum game, all right? The reason this came up is Jim Zub, who's a comic book writer. He started a Patreon page, and he had somebody accuse him of kind of gobbling up all the resources. He's like, why do successful writers have to start a Patreon and not leaving anything for the rest of us? And it's like, his answer was awesome. He was like, building an audience in art is not a zero-sum game. Like, you're going to bring people to the table that weren't at the table before. Like, it's not zero-sum. And so I wanted to talk about things that are zero-sum and things that are not zero-sum, because it's an interesting mentality, right? There are people, we've all met these type of people. Hopefully you're not one of these people, but if you are one of these people, stop being this type of person, right? But we've all met people who, to build themselves up, they tear others down, right? And so they think that, you know, if we're here and I knock all these other people down a peg, then I will be better than them, right? By tearing them down. And they're always doing negative things. But in actuality, what that does is it just lowers everything for them, right? And it's as if they look at attention or value or whatever as a zero-sum game, right? There's 100 value points out there. And so if I can like knock everybody else around me down, then I will gain the value points that they lost or whatever. And that's not how it works. If they were to take the time to become better, to become something, without diminishing those around them, there would just be more value created from the work that they did, not from stealing it from other people, right? And so there's that. And then building an audience in and of itself is a collaborative effort, right? It's not like there are 100 people who are going to be interested in art, and that's a fixed position, and they can only be interested in one artist at a time. And so if you steal somebody else's fan or whatever, they lose that fan. That's not how it works. Like we can all like and support multiple things at the same time. And in addition to that, there's not a fixed number of people that are into creativity or art or whatever it is that you're producing. There are an infinite number of people, right? There are billions of people on this planet. And you're going to find new people, right? Zero sum is also not how money works. If you take long term into it, in short term situations, it can be. Let me explain what I'm talking about. At any given time, I have a fixed amount of disposable income, right? I've got some kind of money that I can spend, and that is a zero sum game, right? When that money is gone, it's gone. Unless I want to use a credit card or go into debt or something, that's zero sum, right? But over the course of my lifetime, it's not a zero sum situation, and so it's a matter of timing. If you look at it from a long term thing, and so if you have 3 people that are all offering products that, all things being equal, I choose A rather than B or C, during that time, that might be a zero sum game, but not in the long term, because I still might go pick up B and C, when my next paycheck comes or whatever, right? And so that's kind of how that works. And interestingly enough, there is not a finite amount of money in a country or a community or whatever, right? Because that's not how money works. And a lot of people don't understand economics in this aspect, right? And I'm not going to get political here, but I am going to say that I don't agree with either extreme on the left or the right when it comes to finances. And so let me say this: if I have $10, right, and I buy something from Frank for $10, right? He had something, he gives me that service, say he mows my lawn or something like that. There's been a value exchange, right? That $10 is not destroyed. It's just now transferred. Okay, it's passed into Frank's hands. And then I receive the value of having my lawn mowed. Now let's say that Frank takes that and he goes to the food truck and he buys $10 of chimichangas from Pete. That $10 is now transferred to Pete, and Frank gets $10 worth of value in chimichangas, right? And then Pete takes off from work and he goes to the movies, and that movie is paid for with that $10, and Susie gets her paycheck for working at the movie theater, and a portion of that $10 goes towards her paycheck. Now she has $10, hopefully she's getting more than that. She spends it or whatever, right? But Pete got the value of that movie. And so now that one $10 bill, it's not worth $10. To this group of people, it is worth a mowed lawn, chimichangas, a movie, and whomever else it passes hands. As it circulates through a community, as money circulates transactionally through a community, it creates value in every single transaction. And so money in a macro sense, not a micro, I can't remember the difference. Money in a global scale or in a community scale is not a zero-sum game, right? Now, where this breaks down is if people hoard it and don't spend it. And so you have people that just sit on, millions or billions of dollars without doing anything with it. Now, I'm cool with people that are spending it, people that are employing people with it, people that are building things with it, people that are creating value with it or whatever. But if you're just being miserly with it and you're Scrooge McDuck having it in kind of some sort of silo that you swim in, then that locks up that currency to the point where it's not creating value through transactions. And so that's how money works, right? And it works like that in creativity as well. And so if I sell a set of stickers to somebody, I have a little bit more money. And I'm going to spend that on things that I like. I'm not going to sit on it. And so the artists that you like and follow and want to buy their things, they also like and follow other people's art and want to buy their things. And so what happens is, instead of this zero-sum game of like, oh, well, he got their money and I didn't, it's gone. No, that's an additional transaction that creates value and moves the money around so that then that person can buy from somebody else, who can buy from somebody else, who can buy from somebody else. And it's this community building situation. And so, in any case, I just wanted to talk about that. So, the long-term strategy of building an audience, I think, is really important, because instead of looking at it as all other creatives are your enemy or your competition, other illustrators, other writers, other artists, or whatever are competing with me, I can look at this as we are building more interest for everyone. We are creating fans that weren't there before. We are going out collectively, raising issues and raising interest. And it's not like somebody who wasn't into comics finds an artist that they love, they start buying comics that artist creates, and they don't buy any other comics. They're going to buy other comics. And so, artist X, who creates his title, is going to bring that fan in that likes artist X, and then that fan is now a fan of that medium, or that genre, or that style, or whatever, and they will begin to consume other things outside of artist X, in addition to artist X, and then in addition to that, they're going to have an influence amongst their circle of influence, where they're going to tell their friends and family, and they're going to begin talking about it with their coworkers and whatever. And so, looking at other artists as your competition is a short-sighted and counterproductive way of looking at things. And so, if we could stop competing with each other and start collaborating, and at least that viewpoint of collaboration, whether that be actual collaboration or whether it just be helping each other out, that only helps to serve and build the kind of creative community for everyone. Kind of that idea of a rising tide raises all boats, right? As we add more people into the mix, there are just more people available for everybody to interact with and to transact with and to receive value from and give value to. So, a couple things. One thing is, you should be focused on adding value wherever you go. And if you focus on adding value wherever you go, then other things will naturally fall into place and value will come back to you, right? If you are in a situation where you seek to suck everything dry and you're trying to take value at everything, that becomes the law of diminishing returns. That becomes a downward spiral where nothing is going to come back to you. I just read and listened to... Do I have it here? I don't have it here. It's upstairs. But Make Good Art by Neil Gaiman. Such a good speech. And there's a book that is phenomenal that everybody needs to get. It's not that expensive, on Amazon. Where it's just the speech. But he just talks about... Now I lost my train of thought. Why did I bring that up? It's really good. You should read it and listen to it. That'll come to me. I don't know why I brought that up. But anyway. Oh, he talks about throwing bottles into the ocean. So you're on an island, and he's talking about becoming a writer, but you're gonna put a lot of messages in bottles, and you're gonna throw them out there into the ocean, right? And they're gonna go away from you. And for a long time, nothing is gonna come back. And then every once in a while, somebody will get that bottle, they'll open it, they like it, they'll put some value into that bottle, and they'll send it back to you, and it'll come to you, and it'll reach you, okay? And some of those bottles will never reach anyone, and some of those bottles will reach people, and they will put stuff into the bottle and they'll send it out and it goes to somebody else and not you, right? And then he talks about eventually you'll get to the point where you've started sending out so many bottles that they all start coming back to you. And they all start flowing back, and everything that you do where you're putting value into the world returns value to you. It's kind of this building game. But in the process, you have created a situation where a number of other people are reaping the benefits of things that you've done, and you're reaping the benefits of some of the things that they've done. And it's just kind of this kind of building idea. So anyway, there's just some thoughts that I was thinking about. The first thing is don't view other creatives as your competition. View them as collaborators and friends and people that you can add value to, and people that will eventually add value to you, and that type of thing. And just be human about it. And I think that's good. And then the other thing is that as we kind of go through life in this artistic journey, that it's not all about the competition, and the competition is really with yourself rather than competing with other people. Now, I look at other people's art by comparison, by way to improve. I buy art I don't buy it all the time, but I buy art so that I can look at it, and I know that I'm not there, and there's that gap. But because I compare myself to that, I can help. It helps me see where that is so that I can close that gap. But I don't compare myself to them in a competitive way to where I'm trying to edge them out or make myself feel bad or something. It's solely for a constructive point of view. Then the other thing is competition with yourself is good, and I compete with yesterday. And so if I'm not better than I was yesterday, then today wasn't as worthwhile as it should have been. And if I'm not dissatisfied with something I made in the past, then I haven't improved. And so I don't do that in a way where it is detrimental, or I try not to. Oftentimes it is. But I don't do that in a way that will hinder me or stop me from continuing to create. But I do it in a way as measuring a benchmark. And so if you look at this situation where you have those creators that are significantly better than you, and yourself in the past that should be worse, and you're in the middle, running away from yourself in the past and towards those people that are better than you, that's kind of the ultimate good sweet spot to be in. So anyway, you should have seen me making this page, and you will see that I have created the composition for this page. This will turn into something that I'll print and ink, and it'll be one of the pages in the book. And you can find my stuff at corykerr.com. I've got stuff for sale there, as well as lots of different tutorials that you guys can learn how to do different things. And I would love to hear what you guys think about this particular topic. I'm interested to see your guys' mindsets, both in improving and also in competition within the creative space, and how you view other artists and that type of thing. I'm super interested in that. And you can always find me on Twitter and Instagram and all that. And there's not enough airflow in this room. I'm super hot, and I've been talking and standing, and so now I'm beginning to sweat. So I am out.